Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you guys are watching this. You're probably wondering right now, Doulop, why are you running? Well, if you missed the last video, which I'm sure most of you probably did because the videos were horrible, I got a brand new GoPro sent to my P.O. box by a subscriber friend, which is legit. Thank you so much again. But this GoPro actually has image stabilization, which, as you can tell from this video, is legit. If I use the GoPro Hero 4 I was using, like this one, as you can tell, it is, well, pretty bad. So the brand new GoPro I have right now is stabilizing the image, and I hope you guys enjoyed the videos more now. All right, guys, it feels so good to get my car out. I know I'm not gonna drive it because the roads right now are horrendous, but today is January 16th, and we're closely coming up on January 30th, which is actually 12 years since I bought this car. I can't believe it. I was 19 years old. I am now 31 years old. I was 19 years old when I bought this car. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to even start how much I love this car. If you guys do follow the channel, I really appreciate your guys' support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for continuing to be here. If you're new to the channel, I really appreciate you guys being here as well. Please hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. It really helps out. I bought this car, like I said, when I was 19 years old. I had always liked Corvettes. The owner of where I used to work actually let me borrow his 2003 for prom 2 years in a row, which was amazing. It was a 50th anniversary edition. Very low miles. And when I drove that car, I told my dad, it's like, listen, I said, I have to get a Corvette. I know I won't be able to afford a C5 at that point, but I'm gonna get a Corvette. I ended up finding this one in Mount Union, PA, just about an hour and a half from here, and it has been absolute joy. So I wrote down a few things that I have done to the car, things that like needed done. I basically want you guys to know, like, if you're looking to buy a C4 and have it long term, you know, there's gonna be a lot of issues. Is it gonna be expensive? You probably want to know, is it worth me having a C4 Corvette? So this is the 1991 with the L98 engine, ZF6 manual transmission, six-speed transmission. And we're gonna get right into it here with everything I've done over the past 12 years. All right, so in case you're one of those people that want to just like leave the video right now because you're not really sure, you know, is this gonna be accurate? I just want you guys to know up front, I have personally put 23,000 miles on the car since 2009. Now that's probably not a lot to some of you. To some of you, it's probably a lot. It has classic plates. I don't drive it very often, about 1,000 miles a year, a little more, a little less, depending on what I can get into. But I've put 23,000 miles on this car, so everything that you hear me say is based off owning it for 23,000 miles, also 12 years. So when I first bought the car, the paint was not original. It had been repainted by somebody else, and they did a horrific job. I mean, there was paint runs all over the bumper, down here. The car's not real clean right now, guys. I drove it through bugs recently, but there was paint runs running down here. This year had a huge scratch on it. But the biggest problem is, like, from here to here was like a big gouge that was out of the fiberglass. It was all white. It was splintery. You definitely didn't want to touch it. But I ended up having a professional right here in town fix it up for me. It looked beautiful, but turns out that didn't even really matter, because a couple years after that, a friend of mine was borrowing a car and drove it through a cornfield, and I ended up having to get the entire car redone and repainted and a whole bunch of cracks fixed anyway. So it didn't really matter. But when I bought the car, that is the first thing I had to do. Now, that's not a maintenance issue. I'm just kind of giving you guys a little bit of background of the car whenever I bought it. The thing about the car that was not the greatest was the exhaust. Now, if you guys are familiar with the C4 generation, you'll know that these are not stock tips at all. These tips are actually ZR1 tips that somebody before me had put on the car. The stock ones are kind of, at least as far as I know, they're all like a big rectangle. It's like one output, big rectangle. I think they look really bad. I know some people like, you know, all stock, and I am perfectly fine with that. I respect that. I personally did not like those exhausts, so I'm very glad that the previous owner did this for mine. But what I was talking about the exhaust for is because one of the first things I had to do was make it louder. Now, it did have a very nice sound to it. It had a rumble, like a V8 rumble that a lot of you guys probably enjoy, but it did not have the growl that I really wanted. I like when you start it up, you can really hear it. And whenever I went and test drove this car, it was sitting on the lot, and the guy had it idling for me because it was in January. It was freezing cold, very cold that day, and it even had snow on the roads. Won't even go there. But the exhaust was idling. I'm like, it's all right. But I ended up modifying the exhaust a little bit, which is why it sounds the way it does now, how you guys heard a little bit ago. If you're interested in knowing what I did with the exhaust, if you go back just a few videos before this one, there's a whole video on the entire thing. I got a lot of good comments on that. A lot of people watched it. So if you have any interest, go back and check it out. Now, getting into the very first mechanical issue I had with the car. This was something that it happens to all cars, but right after I bought the car, like literally a year or less, the alternator went out, which is not a big deal. The nice thing about these cars is, as you can see here from the side of the car, it's super easy to get to. It's right here. It actually still looks clean, as you guys can see. By the way, this new GoPro is so freaking cool, how I can actually see what I'm filming. With the Hero 4, you have no idea what you're filming because there's no screen, so you kind of have to just go on your computer and wish for the best that you got what you wanted. But in this, I can actually see what I'm pointing at, which is awesome. So thanks again to whoever the subscriber was sent this to me. I love you. You are an absolute hero. This actually went out. As I'm sure most of you guys know, I'm probably wasting my breath here. This is an alternator. It charges the battery, which is right here on the C4 while you're driving. So I replaced this. I don't know how much it was. I mean, like I said, it was like 11, 12 years ago. But my dad and I put this back in the car, a little over $100, and then you have your core turned in. But that was the first issue I had with this car. Again, not really an issue. All cars have them go out. But this car at that time was like 93,000 miles whenever my alternator went out. The second thing that went out in the car, I shouldn't say went out, but had to be replaced, was the radiator. Radiator, whatever you guys call it. I call it a radiator. My dad calls it a radiator, whatever, but radiator is what I usually call it. But the radiator is in here underneath this shroud right here. And the reason I had to replace it is because it actually sprung a leak, and I was leaking antifreeze. I could see underneath the car whenever I'd move it. And you know, radiators are known, you know, eventually to get little cracks in them. And once you start leaking antifreeze, that ain't good, because antifreeze is what keeps your engine cool while it's running. So radiator I need to replace. Again, I forget how much it was. That was probably a year or two after I got the car, so like 10 years ago. My memory's not that great, but the radiator did need replaced in this car around 94,000 miles. Then in 2010, I actually drove home one night and I parked the car so I could go in and get the garage door open. Now again, I didn't live here because, you know, we just bought this place, but I was at my parents' house at the time. I was like 20 years old, 21 years old. And I noticed, standing back from the car, because it was dark outside, there was like a really bright glow underneath the car. And I'm like, what in the world is that? Like, it looked like there was a light on. So I got underneath here, I got to looking, and I'll see if I can get this for you guys. But the catalytic converter, which is right here, I don't know how well you guys can see that, but the catalytic converter right here was literally like cherry red. Now, I didn't want anything that hot to be close to, you know, my car, because I don't want the car to catch on fire. So I'm like, what in the world would cause that? So the guy I bought the car from in Mount Union, Pennsylvania at Keystone Corvettes, I called him. His name's Joe, and even to this day, 12 years later, I still call him and text him with questions about the car. So he's a great guy. He knows a lot of stuff. I said, hey, Joe, I said, I got a cherry red catalytic converter on my car. I can actually see it glowing underneath the car. What is that? And he said, sounds to me like a bad injector. me knowing nothing about engines and how they work and all that stuff, I didn't really know what they were, but I went to the store and I bought myself one of those Haynes manuals, which looks like this. I got that at, I think, Advanced Auto Parts. While we're on this subject, I figured I would mention I also have the 1991 Corvette electrical booklet and the service manual, which come in super handy whenever you have problems with your Corvette. But anyways, I wasn't really sure like how to do injectors, but that service manual told me all about it. So I actually went, your injectors on these cars are right here. There's one, there's two, back there's one, and there's of course 4 more on the other side. So I replaced all the injectors. I did all it myself. I wish I actually recorded myself doing all this work, but I cannot find the footage anywhere. I was really upset about that. I thought I had it on my computer. I don't. I'm still trying to look through my old DVDs that I burnt years ago. I still can't find it, but if I ever do, it'll show up on the channel, I promise. But I took all this stuff apart, replaced all the injectors, and while I had it off, I also replaced all the spark plug wires, the cap and rotor. I did all that stuff, and honestly, again, didn't know this, but once I got it all back together, the car ran much better because, you know, I was missing an entire injector. So now that I had all 8 injectors running, you know, very well, the car definitely opened up and definitely felt more powerful. So that was the other problem I had. That was probably around 99 to 100,000 miles when that happened. But again, I mean, that's you know, that's a lot of miles for a car until you have something like that go wrong. At least in my opinion, it is. But that was the next thing that I had to do. The injectors are not expensive. Now, if you get, you know, you can definitely spend a lot of money on injectors. I got mine, I think, refurbished. They're actually Bosch brand, B-O-S-C-H. It's a very well-known name. But if you were to buy like brand new, like top of the line, you can spend a lot of money on injectors. I did not do that, and I had no problems since I replaced these like 8 years ago. Actually, 10 years ago, 9 years ago. The next thing that I actually replaced in the car was the fuel pump. Why am I showing you back here where the fuel goes into the car? Well, because in the 1991 Corvettes, they actually made it so simple. You actually take out this screw and this screw, and I forget, there's one back there somewhere. Yeah, there's one there and there's one there. And this entire assembly actually comes out. You take the lid off, of course, but once you take that out, there's actually like, I forget, 8 or 10 screws around the housing in there. And once you take that off, the entire fuel pump assembly pulls right up out of the car, and the fuel pump is on there with like a clamp. You take the fuel pump off, put a new one on, put it right back down inside the hole, put the bolts on, put this back on, and you're good to go. A lot of newer vehicles these days, you gotta drop the whole tank. It takes several hours to paint a butt. My dad, as some of you guys know, is a mechanic. And he knows a lot of stuff about vehicles, and he was very impressed with how easy it was to replace the fuel pump on this car because it was very simple. But the reason I replaced the fuel pump, it turned out I didn't even need a new fuel pump, but I thought my fuel pump was going out because whenever I would notice that when I would like floor it around like a turn at a stop sign, like if I were to pull out and turn left or right, like really getting on it, it would like, the car would just like die. And I didn't realize, I thought it was a fuel pump going out. Well, it turns out I noticed that every time it would do that, I was really low on gas. So what it was the fuel would slosh to the one side. It wasn't able to pick up fuel. Now that I keep the car higher than empty all the time, it doesn't do that anymore. But the fuel pump, I'm glad I got it replaced. I did that just I think 2 years ago. And took us maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to do that. I did not film that. I wish I would. That was actually before I was doing YouTube like I am right now. So if I would have been doing YouTube, of course I would have been on camera. But the fuel pump was replaced. Not a very expensive part. I think those fuel pumps are used on a lot of different vehicles too, so they're like a dime a dozen, very cheap to replace. By the way, guys, side note, I told you guys in my last video that I was getting something very exciting for my Jetta that I've been wanting for a long time. I finally got it with some Christmas money. I've always wanted a German plate, and as you can see here, I got her name. Her name is Gabriella. I do name my cars. If you don't like it, sorry, too bad. But I got Gabriella on my car, and it's an actual like metal plate. It's embossed. It's legit. Actually made very, very good. I love it. Makes the whole car look, you know, much more German, which is what I wanted. So got that. Other thing that I have had to replace, which I didn't even know was a problem until I watched another YouTuber's video, and I was like, oh, it's supposed to do that? Yeah. Well, apparently, whenever you push this button right here inside your door, that pops your rear hatch. See how that actually goes up in the air like that? Pretty nifty. Well, see, when mine, before I replaced these shocks right here, which, sorry for the sun, guys, the sun's it's in the wrong place right now, but these shocks right here, before I replaced them, whenever I would push that button, the hatch would actually just go boop. It would just pop up and stop. It wouldn't actually go all the way up. So when I realized that my shocks are supposed to do that, I was like, well, heck, I'm replacing them, because now it does that, and it's a lot better. You don't have to go back and actually lift it up still. Now the new shocks are really stiff, so you really gotta kind of push, but I'm very glad I had them done. Very cheap. I think I bought both shocks for $46 from Corvette mods, but you can buy those shocks like pretty much anywhere. They're like $46 for both of them. Very easy to replace. I made a video about that as well last year, so if you want to go back and find that video, if you're interested in replacing yours, feel free. And on that same note, there's also a video that I made of me replacing the fuel filter about a year ago as well. So if you're interested in that stuff, please feel free to go back and like the videos, and again, subscribe if you'd like to. Another thing I want to be sure and mention is I've had a few people ask me about the wiper arms and motors. It seems like some people have problems with their wiper motors going bad. And this is also kind of sad to even admit, but I told you guys I don't really drive this thing in the rain or, you know, at night and stuff like that. But I've owned this car for 12 years and I have never, ever replaced my wiper blades. I have used them. Actually, the last time I drove this car, I had to use them because I got caught in the rain. They would say still work fine. There's no streaks. Now these are very old style wiper blades. I don't buy this style anymore. I buy like the ones like this. I have my Jetta, the kind that like bow. But yeah, my wiper blades still work fine. All the dials on the switch work great for it. No problems with all the wiper blades for my car, but I do know that has been a known issue for some people. But the only way to really fix that is just don't get the windshield wet. And now to one of the most upsetting and depressing problems that I've had with my car. Apparently this is like a known-ish issue with the 1991s, with the C4s I should say, is the radios. The radio is a Bose, where's it at here? It says it on here somewhere. Yeah, Bose Delco Gold Series, has cassette, has CD, has radio. It's a very, for its time, it is a very technological radio. It has a lot of really cool technology in it. You can set like how loud it is as you get louder in the car. The radio will get louder, all that stuff. It has speakers there on the other side, and then of course in the back. My radio 3 years ago, just stopped working. It worked fine up until then. And if you're not familiar with these radios, there's this part, and then there's the brain of the radio, which is called the CDM, which is actually in my car stored up underneath the dash. Very pain in the butt to get to. But in the later C4s, of course, not mine, they're actually right behind the seat. Very easy to access. It's super simple. Apparently you can send them out and get them redone. I have not done that yet, but I did buy a new one that was refurbished, and it did not work. It is not cheap to get this stuff fixed. It's like $200 some. I do not have the money to spend for a radio. I mean, if it was a mechanical issue, I would have to, because I want to be able to drive the car. But the radio not working, I can deal with. It sucks, but I can deal with it. But I still have not gotten this radio fixed. It still looks nice because it's still in there. But I've had a lot of people asking me in regards to the video I made of me trying to fix this, if I've had any luck, and I have not. If I do ever pursue it again, I will definitely make a video about it, and you guys will definitely know about it. Another issue on the inside of the car is I can't show you right now, but my tachometer right here, it doesn't work anymore. Well, it works, it's just way off. Like when I give it throttle, it'll go way up to 6 in like no time. And a lot of people are like, hey man, your RPMs are way high. Well, you're right, the RPMs are showing really high, but it's not actually accurate. Pretty sure it's a tach filter, which I'm getting ready to replace, and that will be on video for you guys to see and enjoy if you guys ever need to replace one. Hopefully this spring. I do want to do that. But yeah, I don't know if it's the gauge cluster or the tach filter. I'm hoping it's tach filter because it's much cheaper, much easier. But if it is the gauge cluster itself, I'm just going to have to do it and wish for the best, because I know they're expensive, but I do need to get that fixed because it's really annoying whenever you're at 3,000 RPMs and it's showing you're at like 7. So I definitely want to get that fixed as well. Another thing I did for this video is I made a very short list of things the car still needs that are not really a priority, but need to be done at some point. The number one thing I wanted to bring up to you guys is the weather stripping on these cars. Now, keep in mind, this car is 30 years old. This year, 2021, this car is now officially 30 years old. So this rubber along here, and as you can see here, it looks really bad. Definitely not, nice looking, but the weather stripping in this car should be replaced. From what I hear, it's not a very fun job. There's a lot of glue that has to be scraped off, and it's not real cheap to replace this stuff. The only reason I really need it, because as you guys know, I always drive with my top off. I never have the top on when I drive, unless I get caught in the rain. I'll put the top on. But if you do get caught in the rain, you'll get wet with the top on, because when the top's on, it leaks really bad. For some reason, it leaks really bad right here, and the seat will just get soaked. I'll get wet over there. So the weather stripping is definitely not sealing anything on the car anymore. That could definitely be done. This, I mean, honestly, guys, when I bought this 12 years ago, the weather stripping at that point could have been replaced, but it definitely leaks a lot worse now than it did then. So I'd say if you're going to get a C4, you probably, if you have the money for it, that's something you could probably do, but I wouldn't put that before other mechanical issues, because it's not really a huge deal. But if you do have your top on a lot and you drive in the rain, then you probably want to do it pretty quickly. Another issue with these cars, and it's a very well-known issue, is the steering wheel column in these cars get loose. And actually, the guy who inspects my vehicles told me this year that next year it's going to fail if I don't fix it. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. See the steering wheel? See how it moves? That is not normal. Steering wheel should not move at all. And to give you a good example of that, if we hop in my Jetta here, the steering wheel here, it doesn't move at all. It's completely solid, doesn't go up and down. So apparently these columns, somehow they get loose, something gets broken, or I'm not really sure. I made a video one time about things that were wrong with this car, and this was one of them. And a lot of those things in that video have since been fixed, but this is something that I definitely need to do so I can pass inspection. Now I do have, in Pennsylvania, we do have inspection once a year. I have until October of 2021 to get it done. But I'm going to make a video on that because it's you can see how much that thing shakes, and it's pretty bad. But it's been like that since the day I bought it. So I've owned a car for 12 years, and it's never caused me any issues. Is it safe? I would say it's probably not safe, but I mean, I have not had any safety issues since I've owned a car for 12 years. So that is something I need to do. I need to do it this year, and there would definitely be a video made about that as well. The one video that I wanted to make this winter, which I ended up not being able to do because I just could not afford it at this time, is replace the shocks. So in the Corvette, the C4, they're so easy to replace. They're literally right here. You know, all you gotta do is take your tire off, and you pretty much have full access to it at that point. These are actually Bilstein shocks. These are original. Bilsteins are the best you can buy. There are a lot of other brands out there that are cheaper, that, you know, work well, but they're not as beefy and as long lasting as the Bilsteins are. So when I do replace them, they would definitely be replaced with Bilsteins, and there will be a full video on that as well. The shocks on these are so bad, folks. If you drive through a town or pretty much anywhere that has bumps, which in Pennsylvania is basically every road, the car shakes like crazy. Like every bump, it's just like boom, 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 boom. Like if you have a bad back, which I do, you might as well call your chiropractor before you drive the car, because the shocks in this thing are horrible. Now, I never told you guys that at the beginning of the video, but this car has 114,000 miles on it right now. I think it's real close to 115, but the shocks at this point definitely need replaced, and I will be doing that here hopefully within a year or two, and that'll be on film, of course. And the last thing that I wanted to bring up of something that needs done is, I mentioned in a video before that my Corvette, the hood is very heavy. And people thought I was crazy for saying that, but I mean, I'm not a strong person, but when I say it's heavy, I can lift it with ease. It's not a problem. But some people told me that these cars are supposed to have like shocks in them to help raise the hood. And one of my subscriber friends, Matt, he actually got me a 1991 VHS video of the 91 specifically. Talked all about the engine, the specifications, everything about it. Even showed it being built in the factory. And they pulled over and they were doing some talking about the car, and the guy literally lifted the hood up with like his index finger, like just whoop. And I'm like, what? Like, I can't do that. This hood's a lot heavier than that. Now, people have told me that this hood is supposed to have shocks on it, which I don't have any shocks. The only thing I have is that black thing right there, which holds it up. Now, I'm wondering, and I'm asking you folks to help me out. I see that there's like a hole here on this thing. Is that supposed to be connected to something? Is there supposed to be a shock there? Because there's one on this side that has nothing as well. If there are supposed to be shocks there, please tell me, and I will buy them, because that would make a huge difference when lifting the hood on this car. So if that's a thing, that would be something I want to replace as well. Not really replace, just add, because they're not even on the freaking car, which I have no idea why. Someone would take them off. I guess they're bozos. I have no idea. And now to the part of the video where I just want to talk a little bit about what the car means to me. It has been an absolute pleasure, folks, to drive. I absolutely love having this car. It has definitely been a conversation starter for a lot of years. People that have not seen me for like 10 years that finally do see me somewhere, like, hey man, how you doing? Good, good, good. You still got your Corvette? I'm like, dude, literally the dumbest question I've ever been asked. Like, of course I still have the Corvette. Why would I get rid of the Corvette? I'm not getting rid of the Corvette anytime soon, if ever at all. Been an absolute pleasure to drive. The headlights in this car and the side marker lights. Now, I should probably knock on some wood here because I shouldn't be saying this, but the headlights and all the side marker lights on this car, 100% have not touched them since I've owned the car. Like 12 years, none of the lights have went out. 23,000 miles of me owning it, none of the lights have went out. I'm amazed by that. Now, it also helps that I never drive it at night. I shouldn't say never. I very rarely drive at night just because of all the bugs, and I just don't drive at night. Not because I don't want to drive my car at night. I just don't ever really drive it at night, which is why the headlights, of course, are saved a lot. Now, I have used the headlights, you know, at least a couple times a year since I've owned a car, but not like all the time like I would like my Jetta. But that's amazing that the lights in this car are still working after me owning it all that time. Definitely an absolute pleasure to own, guys. You can go back and watch, you know, several of my videos. You can see my excitement in this car. It is just so much fun to own. They are, you know, a very low horsepower. This only has 245 horsepower, but what makes this car so much fun is the 350 foot-pound of torque that you have in this car. The video that I watched, the VHS that Matt sent me, it said that the 0 to 60 in this car, of course, this was, you know, 30 years ago. The 0 to 60 in this car was 5.79 or something like that. That is really good for 30 years ago. I mean, there's cars these days that 0 to 60 is still like 6-7 seconds. And, you know, they advertise that as being pretty good. And that is pretty quick. That's pretty quick. Not compared to, like, the brand new ZR1. The C7 ZR1 or, like, the new C8s, but still quick. But the torque in this car is what gives it so much more pleasure than not having torque, because when you give it gas, I mean, she throws you back in your seat. And anyone who owns these cars will tell you. And whenever I made my video with Matt, when we compared the C5 to my C4, his C5 to my C4, he even said that there was much more torque in my car. At least you could feel a lot more torque in my car compared to his car. Now, that's saying a lot because the C5 was a whole different animal, you know, much better technology, a much more powerful engine, and he still agreed that mine felt faster as far as torque goes. So they're just awesome. If you guys have any questions about, like, what it's like to drive, I did make a POV video, so you can actually see what it's like to drive the car from, like, the steering wheel point of view, and yeah, it's epic. And the last thing I wanted to say about the car is the fact that there has been no big issues at all. Like, I have not had any, I hate saying this, guys, I really do, but I've not had any issues with the engine. Never had any piston problems. I've never, ever used oil. Like, I've changed the oil, of course, in the filter, but I've never actually burnt oil or used oil or leaked oil. None of that. Does not use antifreeze, except for when the radiator was bad, but I replaced that. But it has been a very good car to me. Her name is Katie. I'm sure a lot of you know that by now. Absolutely love this car. And I hope you guys can get one if you're interested. I know a lot of people have told me over the years of me having my YouTube channel that my videos helped them get a Corvette, a C4. And that means the world to me, guys. That means so much to me to know that I had just a little teeny weeny part in helping someone make a decision on a car they want to get. And every single person that has gotten one has said, Doulop, I love this car. It is so much fun to drive. Even on the way home of picking it up, I fell in love with the car. I love hearing those stories because I agree. I know exactly what they mean. When I bought my car, I had an 1.5-hour drive home, and not one time was I like, should I bought this? Should I not? No. 100% I should have bought this car. Fantastic to own. So if you're looking to get in the car, a Corvette, and you're wondering if I have it 12 years, is it going to be anything? Is it going to, cause problems? Again, I bought it with 93,000 miles. It now has 114, 15-ish. I have to look. I think it's 114, high 114s. 23,000 miles, and you see I've really done anything to it. So it's been a phenomenal car. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, please do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. If you did not like this video, please do me a favor and give it a thumbs up anyways. It really helps the channel. Please subscribe and check out the rest of the channel if you'd like for other videos that I mentioned. Take care now. See you later. Bye.